Welcome to another glorious Friday Lunch and Learn sponsored by the Tampa IIBA. Cliff is here. He'll have some stuff for you. He's got the post intro in the chat right now. Do you have anything to say before we start?
Helps if I'm off mute. No, happy Friday. Hope everyone has a great weekend, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Okay, let's rip. So, what we're talking about is kind of a unified theory of business analysis, which really covers how many different aspects of the practice um, differentiate between the engagement and the solution. In the previous two sessions, we've concentrated on the engagement and different aspects of it and different contexts for it. This time, we're gonna talk about the difference between them. And next week, we'll start really diving into the solution half of it. Both are very important. So, me, I do a lot of different kinds of simulation, or I have through my career, and it's given me insight into doing a lot of different kinds of projects and programs of different scopes and scales, full life cycle efforts all over the world, and so on. Um, in different industries for different applications and different architecture. We'll get into that in the future. So, why do so many BA activities look so different? Everybody will tell you a different story about what they do and about what they're looking for. I've talked to a bunch of different BAs, and they have many things in common, but many things that are different too. So we talked about the structure of the Babok previously. The six kind of major phases that I identify in my method or my framework for doing BA work corresponded the knowledge areas, but the entire Babog really talks about a wider range of things, and we'll touch on most of those during this week's talk. So, the first thing I want to talk about, as I said, is the difference between the solution and the engagement. Uh, People also call this the product, what you're actually providing to your internal or external customers versus the process, which is how you go about doing the work. So I have two pictures here. One is kind of a notional process map that talks about the solution or the process we're analyzing, and then the other is my depiction of the method we're going to use to get it done or the engagement. So the engagement is the process used to manage the application of other specific techniques to develop the solution. So this is just like the scientific method. The That's actually a process. The actual work, the actual microscopes or methods of inquiry or the mathematics, that's the actual science. So the scientific method is kind of an overlying meta methodology. So a lot of things we talk about can be examined with this dichotomy in mind. One thing we'll talk about is scope and scale variations. So you end up doing all of these steps for a large effort. That seems pretty obvious, right? You can't avoid doing everything in a formal and detailed manner. Imagine building a space shuttle or a large e-commerce site. You don't just sit down and start doing it. Uh, but for smaller efforts, you might really bypass some of these steps. You might say, hey, Jorge down in user support has a problem with a UI screen. Go see what he wants and then go talk to a programmer to fix it if it's something small. You might not write much down. You might not have a lot of formal meetings, but all these things will happen. Also, why things will look different to different participants. Somebody is involved in all of the steps, but any individual might only be involved in some of them or only one of them. Testers, programmers, designers, UI, UX people, they may only be in one part of this. BAs and certainly higher level managers will be part of the whole thing. I'm generally of the opinion that as many people as possible should be aware of the whole process and at least notionally involved in the whole thing, or at least aware of it and kept apprised of it. Again, down at the bottom here, you'll see links to detailed discussions. In many cases, I have blog posts or other resources I point to with deeper discussions of these ideas. So the next difference we can look at is the 50 BA techniques that are listed in the BABA. I have a long write up I did as a blog post where I try to classify them as being primarily supportive of the solution or the engagement. In some cases, I came up with the idea that they can be used for both. Most of these techniques are actually used to support the solution, which makes sense if you think about it. It's mostly about doing the work, and doing the engagement should be a decent part of it, but not the whole ball of wax. Um, I have found that looking at this, I maybe disagree with some of my own original assessments on this. Take a moment to look and see if you agree or disagree with any classifications I've come up with, and feel free to either speak up or type something in the chat. You're welcome to check out my blog post at your convenience and um, either comment on this week's meetup page or send me something directly. All right, we'll go ahead and move on. So, I've done some surveys, and here's a list of software tools a lot of BAs will use. Again, they support both the engagement and the solution. Um, I think that a lot of software tools are really about collaboration and information sharing. And that's why the preponderance of them here seem to support the engagement. Um, but I know that I've used and been involved with software, and a huge amount of tools I've used do not show up in this list. So the way I ask the question is, what are the tools you predominantly used up to three in your BA work? I think some of the difference is also that BAs tend to be less technical than I've been throughout my career as a software engineer, simulationist, solution architect, data wrangler, and analyst, and so on. But that's just me. We talked week after week so far about the overall project structure. That's basically everything you do right there. Those are the 6+ data phases in the streamlined representation of the process that BAs go through in the course of an engagement. And here are the basic engagement context: waterfall, agile, and scrum, hybrid. Hybrids where you kind of have an overarching structure which drives the overall design, and then the low level design and incremental implementation is kind of done in a cyclical agile type way. Um, then there are some more things if we're improving an existing project, if we're using a simulation to support the design and implementation, it is actually its own entire sub project. And if you're doing a new project from scratch, there is no separate conceptual model phase where you find out what's going on. That's really embedded in the design. So another reason that things look very different to different people is the way some people have thinking about how teams are built. So I can think of three major ways. This one was presented to the Tampa IIBA about a year and a half ago, if I remember. It was a neat presentation. I think it was in the K Force office. And that really is about temperament. And you have three primary drivers, which is heart, head, and hands, and then three kind of mixed approaches that are, for example, facilitator is part heart and part hands, driver is part hands and part head, and champion is part head and part heart. So, if you're looking at it from this point of view, you're really addressing aspects of the engagement. I saw another presentation about 3 or 4 years ago up in Pittsburgh, and she described this particular breakdown of approaches, and you can see what they are. I think in this case, they are trying to address the non functional requirements of the solution. They're really trying to address the process and what the solution is rather than what it does. The more classic way to break this down is by specific rules and specific functions that address the functional requirements of the solution. Now, in reality, you tend to really want to break all three or meld all three of these approaches together, but that's not easy to do. So it really happens kind of implicitly. But now that we have this analytical tool, we can be more purposeful when we're building teams. I'm also aware of many personality indicators and things like that that help managers and team members relate to each other. Myers Briggs is a big one. I've read a lot about that over the years. The Big Five is newer. A guy I worked with a couple of years ago, he had another one. I asked him about it and haven't heard back yet. But that was a really interesting one. So there are a lot of different aspects of this. So whatever teaming concept you use, you always want to really support the individual. The more engaged people are, the more respected people are, and the more listened to people are, the better work they'll do, and the more into the project they'll be. Here's a really important thing. Every management meta framework that is taught about on Wikipedia, Lean Six Sigma, ITIL, PMI, anything you can come up with has a decent section of criticism. And a lot of those involve the techniques being a bunch of management gobbledygook and not really real. As I've discussed before, what you really do is work together and figure out what you're doing and stay in communication so you can work your way through any process or project or program or engagement. At the end of the day, that's what it's all about. Somebody humorously said, um, I can teach a monkey how to do IT. What is harder to teach people is how not to fling feces at each other and at their customers when they get frustrated. So I thought that was both pithy and illuminating. All right. People think that BA work might vary across different industries, and sometimes it does, and sometimes it does not. So, when it comes to managing engagements from a BA point of view, um, the work is always the same. And because I've been in so many different industries and in so many different environments, I can assure you that I've used a very, very similar set of analytical communication and management tools throughout my career. The things that do make a difference are scale, small projects versus large processes or engagements need a lot more management experience to handle and participation experience as well. Whether you're doing a project, program, or product, that makes a difference. And also, whether you're supporting an internal or external customer makes a big deal. Um, those often apply more to PM aspects of the work than BA aspects, but they are important. For the latter one, again, I spent most of my career as an external vendor or consultant. So I'm used to dealing with that overhead of dealing with customers on a formal basis in their environments and elsewhere. The technologies, looking back to the software tools, also programming languages and so on, are often independent of the industry, but some aren't. Some are very, very industry specific. Revit is a big example of that. And there are a lot of very specialized tools that are used in some places more than others. And they take a different amount of work to learn. Domain knowledge can be a very industry specific thing. From the point of view of a BA, you're always talking to the people you're interacting with and working for to learn what they're doing anyway. So that somewhat mitigates that point. Not entirely, but a little bit. bear in mind that people that are hiring, they can ask for anything they want, and their expectations and vision will always be based on what they've been through in their own career. And this week we're keeping it a bit shorter. That's all I have. Do you guys have any questions? Feel free to get in touch with me. Also, feel free to check out my website. If you want to see any of these presentations, they're in the portfolio link under presentations. These get you to the slides. You can click on any of these titles for more information. These are down at the bottom. And that is me. And back to Cliff. Thank you for showing up again.
Awesome, guys. Have a good weekend.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Have a good weekend.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, thanks.